And so what an excellent background of where we are right now from a lawyer's perspective: public use, commercial use, private use. And now we're going to segue into Jim Kuzma. I introduced Jim earlier. You know who he is, you know what he does. What I find interesting is in the state of Florida, we had this conversation, there are 30, by my count, there's 37 departments or agencies in Florida. And of those 37 departments or agencies in Florida, by my count, more than half of them could be substantial benefactors by the use of drones, unmanned aircraft systems. And so that comes into the public use. And so with that, I turn the floor over to Jim, because Jim has been down this road a little bit. Even though he's only 35 years old, he's aged a little bit, it looks like, because of his experience. So on that note, Jim, the podium's yours, sir.
Thanks, Grant. As they key that up, I think that's one of the interesting things from a public, Grant, what you showed me, I think I should have been in FAA jail for the demonstration we ran, because we did certify the operators, we did certify the platforms, right? We squeezed into airspace. I'm not sure how we didn't get stopped. So what I'm going to tell you is that those agencies, the public agencies there, and it's not just obviously it's not just the agencies, but it could be any authority, it could be a port authority, it could be anybody, has the ability to set up their own program. Right, program we have actually is modeled after, actually it is what we submitted for the test site for Florida. So one of the things I've seen with the public agencies here is that they don't normally manage risk that way. So when you ask someone to come in to actually take ownership of a platform, that's a tough thing for a lot of the agencies to do. We've stepped over, I won't say we've stepped over the line, we've walked and leaned over the line, and we've been able to take that on, and we've offered that to all the agencies in Florida that we will do that responsibility. I think one of the other things, I told Grant I'd probably be off of the script pretty quickly. One of the other things, though, that we've seen is that the FAA, and I would suggest this, that the CRADA program that they have, which is a partnership to go, is a great program to look at technologies that might be able to benefit stuff, whether it's in sense and avoid or in these areas, right? And I will tell you, I believe a lot of the agencies will partner, and so will Space Florida, to be able to support that. Let's see, I don't have a lot of slides, so you'll see on the bottom there, you can see all the different uses, and you can match those up to so many of our agencies here that can do that. The ones that we're worried about are the ones that might have any tangent to a law enforcement requirement here in Florida. And unfortunately, Fish and Wildlife does, agriculture does, right? And so there's a little bit of a concern, right, as to how much they can do, okay? But in each one of those things, there's a tremendous amount of being able to support. And inside there's a tremendous opportunity to be able to use it for the benefit of that. One of the things that's very interesting is our universities obviously are also public entities, except for our private universities, right? But I'll tell you that you know, you can look at, and we encourage anybody to be able to work with anyone to get a CO in place to be able to do that. But I'll tell you that South Florida wants to use drones for marine biology research, marine research. They want to look at traffic management and traffic control. If you look at what their majors are, UF obviously does tremendous things with agriculture across the board. To that, FIT, Embry-Riddle does that. The one concern we'd like to figure out is how do you train pilots and not consider it to be commercial, right, for your students. But really, as you go through, there's lots of different places to go through and look and partner with those guys to do. So that's still an option. It's just a rigorous process. There is an online process. We haven't quite figured it out. We're waiting for our password. We're still waiting for it. But we hope to be able to submit for the COAs too, okay? But to get into a couple other things. So this is actually a slide I had from 2012. And I showed you that, you saw the background there, the aerospace engineering. This is a 2012 view of a portion of the industry. And this is one of the reasons why we thought it was so important, right, to what's going on. And you can take those sensors, whether it's sensors, right, the institute, the simulation and training, and just other related industry. It is all around the state of Florida, right? And most of it is not just aerial systems. It's across the spectrum of robotics platforms, right? And it's pretty significant. There's a challenge to a lot of that. And that's, how do you sustain a business when you can't make any money? right? So I decided to take a little bit of a site selection approach, because what we do is try to bring businesses here. So how do you create the environment that they want to come? And then I'm going to grade us on the next slide. So when you look at it, it's the access to market. I said that the agencies and the departments are a great market, right, for Florida if we can be able to use them for what they're worth. I mentioned Department of Transportation, Agriculture, Emergency Management. Fish and Wildlife is another one to like to use it, right, for things, whether or not it's counting manatees or quite frankly, they gave me a hard time because during the Deep Horizon, they were flying manned platforms consistently. How many people have been in the military? All right, so you know how we show on submarines when we had, after 9/11, we armed the sailors more, right? That didn't make us a whole lot safer, but we did things to go do that. So they flew to show the right level of concern, right? They burned their pilots out, they burned their aircraft out, they burned all kinds of stuff out. So there's opportunities to go through and do that. The markets and customers, right? The other customers are here too. The farmers, right? The power companies, all those guys are here to figure out how to go through and do. So the market's here. So if I'm going to, I'm trying to figure out the bottom line is, how do you draw the floor? That's our job. Right? We're operating costs. We've got a great environment from a labor, right, use state, right, income tax, all that stuff. It looks great. Looks great, right? Workforce, tremendous workforce here. Tremendous workforce. One of the keys that most industries look at is the ability to go find labor in two different categories. You either grow it or you poach it. You poach it from the other guys who are in the industry, right? By a company, they do different things. If you look at our universities, what a tremendous resource for the state that's leaving the state. Whether it's Embry-Riddle, FIT, University of Central Florida, South Florida program, right? Polk State College has a digital imagery course, right, and a maintenance course, right? Tremendous amount of resources to keep here in Florida if they can find a job. But you can't expand unless you can make money. I think that's my pitch center. They need help to be able to fly and make money and use the markets that are here in Florida to do that. There's no way that you can sustain your business without being able to generate that revenue. And by the way, there's no way that an entity like Space Florida can carry those costs, right, to be able to support you guys. Technical, skilled and technical management. The high schools are the other. You're seeing a lot of academies. You're seeing a lot of different things in Florida. I think you guys know from the universities that the high schools have done very well on a national level, right, competing across the board, whether it's maritime, right, or airborne or even ground-based systems, right? And so, you know, believe it or not, we face the same challenge in space. I'm just going to point that out. Right, the same technology. Regulatory climate, positive legislation, right? The interpretation of what can and can't be done and the concern, right, of the oversight is big. It's not just with regard to the privacy, to make sure that legislation doesn't impact another one of the markets or customer bases. There's other legislation, technology incentives, right? Different incentives to help to go through grant programs, right, for different things that maybe the state could look at. It's one of the competitive things that we don't have is other states have actually been able to put resources in a budget line, right, to look at technology. I'll probably get slapped somewhere. One of the things that we don't have is a chief technology officer in Florida. A lot of states that we compete with do, right? And doing that, there's an advocate inside of a lot of the states' governor's office to go through and do. But it's one of the things. I think FDOT is going to fill that role, right? But it's one of those things to be able to advocate this because otherwise, who's day in and day out is getting a message that this is a good thing, right? And it's one of our challenges. And then I call airspace infrastructure, right? Because you can't do it without it. So how do we free up infrastructure to do that, right? That's what we're trying to do, right? Not as successful as we want, right? The rule sets are pretty tough. But even if you put a co in, I can't put a blanket co in for 10 platforms right now. That's hard, right? We'd love to be able to do that, to be able to go through and sponsor. We had a vision of being able to sponsor events for the agencies, let them define the requirements, right? We set up the demo work, the airspace, to do that, and let those guys pick picked the company they wanted to put a contract in place with. Or if it was emergency management, have a series of vetted companies around the state that could respond because the emergency happens wherever it is, right? The last two is quality of life. We have great quality of life, but it comes down to that access to airspace and being able to fly and make money to keep your business going, right? And in the site selection process, it's really, again, from Space Force point of view, you industry will go where you're wanted. Where do you feel wanted? And I think that's the challenge from the leadership role. And I'm looking at the guys on my left, but that's the challenge from the leadership role to do that. And so where do you guys come in, right? As Grant said, I'm 29 years in the Navy, so I'm not a political animal. But it is, I think the Senator backed me up, you can go talk to your representatives, both, right, on a local, right, all politics are local, right? Senator Richter needs your help to get your legislators to support, right, the bill that him and Representative Smith have done, right? He needs your help, right? You can't let someone else's voice overrun what you're going to do. So you, sir, I need to go over the line and get shot at some point, right, later on. But the question is, I know you guys want to help. We all want to help. We want to make it go. But you have to be vocal. You have to know those people. You have to articulate the value of that, right? I'm trying to say that there's an industry here that we can go through and do if the community can figure out how to do that. Otherwise, it's going other places. It may be out of the country, right? Or it may be to a location that they've established some rule sets that allow them to fly, right? The last thing I said is I kind of look at it. Now, our strengths here are those industry. It's the aerospace legacy of Florida. It's our universities, right? Our geography and our environment is key to be able to fly, right? And we put the test site up as a little bit State Florida based, but we do have experience from the test site. We competed very well. We did complete very well. Matter of fact, that's the exact same program we use to run the demo, and we'll step forward, mainly because we're comfortable with the liability we have to take on by following those rules. Weaknesses, right? We do have a weakness in the legislation. It prohibits, right, and limits. And it's not that it was intentional, right? I'm the first one to tell you that privacy needs to be at the top of the list. The problem is the guys in this room are the ones who are going to violate that privacy because you guys are businessmen. You know you're going to get held accountable, right? It's the other folks who aren't the professionals that I think some of these things are written for, right? I point up there, I should have highlighted no state vocal leadership. I think that's changing. I think it's changing with AUVSI. I think it's changing with the Department of Transportation. Leadership like Commissioner Wyndham, and I think you're seeing a change in leadership. And quite frankly, you're seeing a lot of industry leaders who are in Florida that made Florida their home that are willing to step up and be counted. And I think it's the most important is that we have some legislators that are willing to understand, right, the significance of the industry, right, and have taken a leadership role for that. So again, thank you. Some opportunities, right? I think there's some in the development. I think it really has to be that research and development, and be able to put it that way is going to be a key for everything we do, right? But I do think there's an opportunity for creatives. That's what we're looking for something to avoid with different folks. And our threats, you guys know those. You guys know those, that other states are a little farther ahead of what they want to do, or much farther ahead. So I know I went off the script from a public point of view, right? I apologize for being on soapbox, right? But folks, right, everybody has to work to make this work. The messaging has to be consistent. The good things that this technology can do have to be, and you have to give that to those supporters, or to make an argument, right, for why they should support a piece of legislation, an appropriation, a grant program, a support of the university. All that is required to do for the people here. And so, you know, the good Lord helps those who help themselves. So the team's here.